Ruto's budget means for hustlers. Already with me in studio is Dr. Abraham Rugo Moriu. Let's now take a look at the dailies before we delve into that. Couples are going online and hiring private detectives to spy on each other. The Daily Nation describes it as a divorce crisis, and Kenyan households by marital status, and this is according to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. Those who were never married, 1,812,399. Those married are 8,460,227. Widowed, 981,379. Divorced or separated, 661,628. Marriage on the rocks. 1 in every 18 households in Kenya is headed by someone who's been divorced or separated, a 16% rise in a decade. A report by a government agency shows that the chances of a new union breaking are now even higher. Just what could be contributing to this sorry state of affairs? That special report on pages 2, 3 and 4 of the Daily Nation. Ruto warning as Raila digs in over 2022 poll. President William Ruto has dared Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition leader Raila Odinga to lead demonstrations over the outcome of last year's presidential vote, warning he will not yield to blackmail. The president claimed that Mr. Odinga is determined to sabotage his administration's efforts to revive the economy. That is on page 5 of the Daily Nation. Was a KCSE exam stolen? Questions over high grades. Questions have emerged over the credibility of last year's Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education exams after some schools recorded a sudden rise in the number of candidates with straight A's, but Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Mashugu refuted the cheating claims, insisting the exams were not leaked to favor certain schools. That is on page 10 and 11. Dollar crisis, fears over price hikes, shortages of basic goods, shortage of greenback, posing a threat to manufacturing and other short-sightedness coming in. Let me see. The local industries which rely on the U.S. currency to import key raw materials and inputs. And I will invite my panelist here because I feel like that is an area in which he is well versed. This fears over price hikes, shortages of basic goods. I went through the document we are going to be looking at this morning, which is the draft 2023 budget policy statement, and they did make reference to the economic situation in the U.S. and how that will impact Kenya's own performance. What do you make of this report?
No, I think one is that we live in a highly integrated economy globally, and therefore one is that you have goods that we import from other countries and that we export. Of course, what we export is largely, tea, coffee, and other raw materials that are used to produce. But we also import goods. But for the American case, it's interesting because a hike in prices in the American means that the hugest amount of remittances is from the U.S. And therefore, it means that a lot of people, and as you saw, the remittances sometimes are a significant amount of the foreign exchange that comes into the country. Then it means that they have less disposable income on the other side, and that has an implication right here. So there is the import implication of the the kind of things that we import, and the fact that a lot of logistics are also involve the U.S. But more importantly is the remittances, because when the cost of living goes up there, it means people will remit less, and that means then it has a replica effect here, because then the foreign direct the foreign exchange that we gain from remittances, then it's affected. All
right, now I was in my perusal of said BPS.
Yes.
I saw that we have 4.2 foreign exchange amounting in reserve that what would serve us for 4 months, is it? Down from, was it 5.6 months last year. So I thought that is meant to cushion us from any shocks.
Well, yes, it's meant to caution us, but remember that this is a reserve. A reserve has to be deposited into. Yes, it cautions us, but the effect is that you are dealing with a declining export rate. You see, what we sell out there is what gives us foreign exchange. and what we get in terms of remittances, and sometimes what we borrow. But remember that our repayments are also going up. So in the event that, not in the event, in the current situation where our exports are going down, therefore it means that we are gaining less and less. Therefore the reserve is more and more in danger of depletion. You know, because you remember that we still have to pay debts, which are paid in foreign currency, the ones that we have borrowed in foreign currency. We still have to pay for goods and services, these that we are importing. When we import anything from outside the country, we pay for it mostly in dollars. And therefore, whereas we have a reserve of 4 months, you know, and there's an argument that is sufficient, if you are not gaining more, if you're not depositing, it's like you're eating from your deposit, from your deposits. And the more you're depleting them without, you know, replenishing them a bit more regularly, then you have a bit of a challenge. And that's where the challenge is. So yes, on one hand, you have a good cushion over a period of time, but remember we are still paying. There are still things that we are incurring, particularly payment of debt, but also the importation of goods that we are using here.
So we're literally just cutting it, because I read that the recommendation is at least 4 months of reserve, and we're just at 4 point.
Yeah, no, we are just playing safe. Right now, I think it's really a matter of playing safe. The big thing is, what do we do to ensure that we have to up our exports, so that then we are exporting more and therefore getting more foreign currency. Otherwise, you have to spend your Kenya shilling to buy the foreign currency, which then means you deplete even further resources that you would have spent otherwise for other expenses. I think the question there is ensuring that you are not just comfortable that you have a reserve, but that you're doing something to actually improve the reserves, because as you see, it's actually on a declining rate.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Let's flip over and see what the other stories are in the Daily Nation. And there's that special report on the divorce rate, escalating divorce rate in the country. And Ruto warns Raila on planned protests. The country cannot hold this, they cannot hold this country hostage again, and we will not allow them. That is a response from President William Ruto. And Raila expected to drop polls, quote, bombshell at Kamkunji, a quote here of Martha Karua's. The truth lies in the servers. Those doubting the whistleblower's data should demand servers be laid bare. Front page of the Business Daily. Now, just zoom in. Digital lenders protest CBK nod delay amid Google ban. Let's see what Kefa Mwiruri has to say on that. Digital lenders are protesting delays in getting operational licenses from the Central Bank of Kenya amid their blockade from Google Play Store and apathy from funders that provide cash for onward lending. Only 3.4% lenders got licenses after application. Fintech say permit hitches is derailing fundraising. De La Rue sheds 300 Nairobi jobs, fights a $1 billion KRA judgment. And I think for this one, let me just quickly grab my hard copy. Banknote printer De La Rue is releasing close to 300 employees following the freeze of Kenya operations on low business as the multinational firm prepares a fresh fight to overturn a 1.1 billion shilling judgment in favor of the taxman. The global firm, which prints notes for Kenya through the local joint venture that is 40% owned by the Kenyan government, will release the last lot of workers by March. The firm said it does not expect any banknote printing order from the Central Bank of Kenya for at least the next 12 months due to low market demand. While Kenya has struggled to retain and attract multinational manufacturers, it has recently become a magnet for technology firms and financial service companies seeking a hub for a larger share of the African market. Dr. Abraham, is this something we should be worried about?
I mean, tax disputes have been a big thing around, I think the push, and I think it is part of what we'll discuss a bit in detail. There's a very big push for tax collection, and a big argument that it is that there is no what we should be collecting we are not collecting. But as you see, the push is largely on people who have been paying tax to pay more. But here the problem is that this is just one of the cases of laying off employees because you're being pushed you know, from a point of taxation. There are many other companies that have had to go through very difficult times, especially during COVID and in the aftermath of COVID. You know, there have been these types of disputes. They should concern us. It's only that this one is a big amount, you know, but we have had many other, you know, similar cases of a similar nature. But more important is that our drive for growth cannot be tax-driven. It is because then you are not in a space where the focus is largely on how much you are getting, you know, from the different businesses. But where is the side of the facilitation to make sure that the economy is performing, that there is a, you know, there's a space to actually make that money. I think it's something to be concerned about, and it's across board. Even if you go to about issues around VAT returns and whatever, it's a whole list of monies that have not been paid back.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
No, but you know this one is peculiar, given they're the ones who print our cash.
No, I get you, but they're still a business. Remember, at the end of the day, they are here for business. We pay them to print the cash. It's not like they're not a government agency, as it were. We pay them to print the cash. So it's a business that is tendered for. It's only that they have done it for quite a while. I don't think that will derail the provision of the service, because I see this as a separate conversation. But the fact that then you are laying off, it means then perhaps your production time increases, but the point to take is that this is still a tax. It's still a tax dispute, as it were. It's a tax. That's why they're going back to court. But in the meantime, they're having to lay off people because they're saying we cannot afford this. Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
Noted. And we've also been joined in studio by the former Senator Mandera County, Karibu Sana. I am extending the apologies of the MP for Alego Songa, who missed his flight, so will not be joining us. But I'm very happy to have both of you in studio. Again, another story on the front page of the Daily Nation, I beg your pardon, of the Business Daily, that informs the conversation today is state sets sights on 2.8 trillion shillings taxes from small businesses. The government is eyeing a record 2.8 trillion shillings from the micro, small and medium enterprises, raising fears that President William Ruto might deviate from his pro-small business campaign promise. I see here Kenya Power loses 2 billion shillings in tariff discount. Kenya Power lost 2.1 billion shillings in the 15% tariff discount implemented last year as other state-owned firms in the electricity sector refused to lower their charges as agreed with the government. Year ended June 2022, and SACCOs recover 455 million shillings from struggling firms. Savings and credit cooperative organizations recoveries from struggling firms slowed to 455 million shillings in the year ended June 2022 as employers continued to battle liquidity crises. All right, I will leave the Business Daily there. Let's look at the front page of the Taifa Leo, and I'll zoom in. Aya, kibomu cha Raila chatisha serikali, and then muungano wa Azimio kupitia mfichuzi anayedai kuwa mfanyikazi wa IEBC waeleza jinsi ulivyoibiwa kura milioni 1.2 na kupewa Ruto, huku Raila akitarajiwa kueleza zaidi katika mkutano wa Kamkunji leo. Kenya Kwanza wamjibu Raila, and there are several quotes there, one from President William Ruto, Rigathi Gachagua, and Anne Y. Goro. Given that Mheshimiwa Bill Okero is a professional and a politician, what do you make of the planned Kamkunji rally and the response by the government? I saw Ndindi Nyoro tell President William Ruto yesterday, wewe ni maumau hautishiki.
No, I mean, the fact is, the President William Ruto hawezi kutishika from what we have seen in the campaigns in the last, in the 3 years before the elections. He has seen worse. But I think this is a story recurring all the time from Baba that, you know, the elections have been stolen and he's going to do something, he's going to do something, he's going to... of course, from the point of view of governance, really, I think there's nothing wrong in letting these people do their rallies. And so far, this president has not done bad in terms of governance issues. You know, the way he's tried to enhance the independence of the police, the judiciary and so forth. So I think in line with that, he should let the opposition also carry out their mandate, whether it's in parliament or outside parliament. But on the other hand, I think given the sensitive nature of politics in this country and the way it has the potential to ignite, you know, confrontations and so forth, I think this Baba's team ought to really rethink whether there is merit in continuing to hammer the point that, you know, they did not lose this election when clearly they went all the way to the courts. But in my view, as a matter of fact, I don't see anything wrong with them from the constitutional point of view going out and speaking out. But I think if it comes to the streets, if it comes to violence, then I don't think even Kenyans, with the situation we are in economically and so forth, I don't think they will get a lot of support in that regard. But let us not threaten them. Let them do what they want to do, because they are within the law. If they are keeping law and order, if they are keeping peace, I think they should be allowed to do what they want to do. Okay.
That is the same position taken by the Nairobi governor, Johnson Sakaja, although the transport CS, Kipchumba Murkomen, agrees with you. He said, hata hadhani wa Kenya wako na hiyo nguvu ya maandamano, given the economic realities.
Not only economic, but I think this election was a grueling one. The campaigns took 3, 4, 5 years of fighting. So I don't think Kenyans will want to go back again on this. It's been decided on the ballot. Very, you know, two heavyweights in government, the president's side and the deputy side, fighting for 5 years. I don't think that anybody wants to see it again back on the streets between Baba and Ruto.
All right. Okay, before we go on a break and start our conversation proper, let me quickly take a glance at the Star and the Standard. And I don't think we've looked at the East African, though. Let us see here. Front page of the East African-Russian question in Congo conflict claims that DRC has imported European mercenaries to help it root M23 rebels out, have raised queries about commitment to a truce. Rwanda now accuses Kinshasa of preparing for war in spite of ongoing peace efforts. You will recall we had a conversation about this with co-hosting with Leila Mohammed about 2 weeks ago. You can find it on the NTV Kenya YouTube channel. Okay, front page of the Standard and the Star. Let me start with the Standard. Fresh headache for teachers as schools reopen. From challenges of CBC and junior secondary to mass recruitment and retraining of tutors, the climb is steep for stakeholders as parents rue the high cost of taking their children back to institutions that resume a normal calendar. This is on page 4, 6, and 7 of the Standard. And they also have that story on Raila Odinga's planned consultative forum. Bring it on, Ruto dares Raila on Kamkunji rally. And Star, the front page of the Star. KCSE anomalies, MPs, experts demand probe. Inquiries by the Star lay bare secret schemes schools used for massive cheating. Reveals what U.S. think tank says of Ruto and Raila August contest. No clear winner. That is on page 2 of the Star. And on that note, I will let us take a break. And then when we come back, we get into the conversation. And this is it. Integrating KRA tax system with telcos, what Ruto's budget plan means for hustlers. And this is not the only tax proposal we saw on the front page of the Business Daily. That 2.8 trillion shillings the Kenya Kwanza administration hopes to raise from the informal sector. I'm just trying to trace. Aha, here we go. Yes, this is the draft budget 2023 budget policy statement, and this is how they hope to raise taxes. Reduction of value-added tax gap from 38.9% to 19.8% of the potential by fully rolling out electronic tax invoice management system. Reduction of corporate income tax gap from 32.2% to 30% of the potential as envisaged in the KRA corporate plan. Integration, and this is the one that seems to have pricked a lot of people. Integration of KRA tax system with telecommunication companies, tax-based expansion in the informal sector. The potential taxable base of the informal sector is 2.8 trillion shillings as per the MSME survey, the document reads, and implementation of rental income tax measures by mapping rental properties. This will be achieved through enhanced field data analysis, mopping up integration of ITAX, field data analysis, integration of ITAX with National Lands Information Management System and use of a mobile app, rollout of measures at the Customs and Border Control, leveraging on technology and enhanced data analytics to enhance revenue per unit, and upscaling the technical capacity of KRA through skills, technology, and additional staffing. I will allow the experts to get into this with me on the other side of this break.
Now this is what we call convergence. Come through for the morning fix this and every single Friday right here on NTV. Yes, it's about that time.
You know, the coolest thing about mornings is that a girl and two guys together in the mix, you never know what to expect. You guys are crazy.
From Friday 6, bring your good vibes, bring your picks. From 7 a.m., it's a dope mix. Every single thing on Friday changes with the morning fix.
Could you deposit this check into my bank account? And make sure that no one knows about it. Not Dad, not Gabriel, and especially not Isabel.
Understood, sir.
Okay, good.
A lot of lives will be negatively affected if the company closes down.
I know, Dad. And I'm doing everything I can to find out who sabotaged the company.
They've been ganging up on me all night. Clean game? Are you kidding me?
Come on, sir. I'm afraid it's time to go.
Don't you dare touch me again. Do you even know who I am?
Sir, please, just leave.
Forever, my love.
Do you know why they call me sugar? It's because I bring the flavor, the heat, the spice, and the vibes on Kenyan radio. When a song plays on my show, it moves from being a hot song to a hit to a classic. When I interview you, you become a household name. And for every brand that advertises on this show, they move from being a brand to the brand. If you want to be seen, felt, and heard, you know where to be. This is the place every Monday to Friday on 96.3 Nation FM. It's the Nation FM Drive with yours truly, Anto, Neo, Soul. So kiss, mwah! Every other frequency, goodbye, and keep it right here, 96.3 Nation FM, where good music lives.
Yo, Butru Seke, the sharp god up in the mix. Now I'm saying, NTV, shout out to you, bro. Keep it locked. Hey.
Sauti yako ina sound vizuri kwenye masikio.
I like it. Come to the dance floor, babe.
Angie.
Leo tuna festa pe banga.
Festa pe banga. Another banga. And it's just like an amazing mix.
I am happy today. So happy. Sin koma vitu nanilea.
No compromise, this the hottest combo.
On NTV, don't touch that dial. Not yet. Not yet. No, I want it.
All right, welcome back to AM Live. And just a reminder of what we're discussing, integrating KRA tax system with telcos, what Ruto's budget plan means for hustlers. We looked at a little bit of what that entails in the draft 2023 budget policy statement. There was a statement released by the Central Organization of Trade Unions on the subject, and they raised some concerns. Let's just look at that first, and then I will invite my panelists to weigh in. The Central Organization of, is it close enough? Let me zoom in a little bit farther. The Central Organization of Trade Unions has incessantly been advising various administrations against tax hikes that are eventually counterproductive. On 31st December 2020, KOTU issued a statement advising the government of the day against their decision to sign into law the Tax Laws Amendment Bill of 2020, which ended government measures to cushion salaried workers in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. In the statement, KOTU noted that with only 2.5% of salaried Kenyans then earning above 100,000 and a majority of about 80.5% earning below 50,000, it was insensitive for the Kenyan government to introduce punitive tax measures at a time when many workers had lost employment as a result of the pandemic. KOTU then, just as now, invited the National Treasury to be creative and innovative in their proposals and advised both Parliament and the Executive on other alternative measures it can employ in order to sustain our economy. In that advisory, we noted that the National Treasury must not always be in a rush to impose unreasonable taxes on a population that is hurting and bedridden simply because the government is in need of money to spend on its development agenda. Further, we called on KRA to embark on a radical exercise of collecting taxes from those Kenyans who have mastered the art of tax evasion and tax avoidance. Unfortunately, despite the incessant calls from KOTU asking the government to be sensitive and not adopt punitive tax measures that will hurt Kenyans, the government bulldozed through to implementing the Tax Laws Amendment Bill number 2 of 2020. Consequently, the 2022 election was largely about the economy. Kenyans got tired. They failed to reconcile the thoughts of 2 billion shillings being lost daily through corruption and the punitive tax measures being superimposed on them by the government of the day. 2 years later, KOTU would like to advise the government of His Excellency President William Ruto not to hurt Kenyans in their mission to collect enough taxes to not only implement the promises in the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto, but also make Kenya economically independent. And the last page of this reads, the move by the current government, as outlined in the 2023 budget policy statement, to have access to and or investigate mobile money transactions, M-Pesa, is ill-advised and counterproductive. First, a majority of users of mobile banking are hustlers and the poor, who overwhelmingly voted for this government. Second, this move will ultimately make Kenyans avoid using mobile money platforms and, as a result, destroy a great innovation that has since helped ease the movement of money, especially from the urban to rural areas. The resolve by the government to snoop on mobile money transactions will have a similar effect to the move in the U.S. government. I'm just going to skip past that. Very soon, Kenyans will start avoiding the use of mobile money platforms and maybe start using other platforms to send money like courier and parcel services. Instead, KOTU would like to invite the government to crack down, and this is in bold, on outsourcing companies while formalizing many jobs in the informal sector. Rather than monitoring and investigating M-Pesa transactions, this is their proposal. The government should ensure that the more than 5,000 outsourcing companies regularize the employment terms and conditions of work for their employees by ensuring that they pay all the statutory deductions, including pay as you earn, and NSSF and NHIF, among others. For instance, most private security firms and many outsourcing companies in the agricultural service, manufacturing, hospitality, education, transport, construction, financial, and other key sectors of the economy don't pay any taxes to the government, despite employing millions of Kenyans. And a recent study, which they say has been corroborated by them, found that private security firms employ more than 1.2 million Kenyans, with a majority of these security officers underpaid in cash and sadly way below the minimum wage. Generally, more than 3 million Kenyans employed by outsourcing companies are paid in cash and below the minimum wage. If only the government can clamp down on these companies that outsource labor, they will collect the much-needed taxes to operationalize some of the promises in the Kenya Kwanza manifesto. Further, the statement is now concluding the government should work with other partners in the labor sector and ensure the formalization of many jobs in the informal sector to ensure the government gets its fair share of the revenue. It is possible to collect taxes even from Mabamboga if the government becomes innovative and uses incentives. Finally, would like to invite the National Treasury and by extension KRA to think innovatively and creatively. The world of work is changing and we cannot continue adopting simplistic measures, Kotu says, such as snooping on mobile money transactions to raise taxes for the government. Statement ends there, signed by Dr. Francis Atwoli, the Secretary General of the Central Organization of Trade Unions. Escaped me for a second there. But Dr. Abraham, 3 trillion revenue collection target set for KRA by President William Ruto in this financial year, in the coming financial year, 23-24. It's this as of June, beginning June onward. What do you make of that? July, yes, sorry. What do you make of that target?
Thank you so much. You know, tax collection is a factor of how the economy is performing and growing. And therefore, if you are expecting a fairly, a growth at about, we still are not sure of what is the economic growth figure. It's been dancing between 5.5. The CS has said 5.5 in one meeting, then the BPS says 6.1%. But having said that, first, it's ambitious. It's fairly ambitious because of the kind of growth we are talking about 600 billion growth from this year, which is 2.45 thereabout target. The question is, one, that a lot of this growth is expected in VAT, in import duty, and in excise duty, and income tax, of course. But if you put aside income tax and looked at VAT and excise duty alone, first of all, those are very regressive taxes, because these are taxes that apply to everybody regardless of their levels of income. In other words, if it's 16%, one who earns 1,000 and the other one who earns 10,000, both pay 16% for the same good, which is very, if you think about it, it's a very inequitable enough. And therefore, a big focus must be, one says should be on income tax. But again, we are against declining jobs, companies closing, in the sense that the economy is yet to peak in that way. So I find it fairly ambitious, and my concern, the BPS talks about just that fixing efficiency gains alone is sufficient to get us to that money. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure. There's been quite a growth even by KRA in the last couple of years. I find it fairly ambitious, and I'm not too sure we are yet in the space where we are able to fly at that level. Do I think it can be reached? Yes, but there needs to be a process of income generation building, which then will lead there, and not just focusing on this easy to collect VAT, because then it means putting taxes in many other goods and commodities which are consumed by everybody, including the poor. For me, that's a concern.
All right. Yeah. Mheshimiwa, despite Kotu's concerns that the snooping on mobile money transactions will affect the hustler more than anyone else, there seems to be a consensus that there are those who are evading tax. So, but first of all, what do you make of this target, 3 trillion in the 2023-24 financial year?
Well, I think the 3 trillion tax target is misplaced. In my view, absolutely misplaced. I think this government knows, and they came to power on the plummet of economic revolution. The reason is because they have been hammering that point in the last 5 years that the economy has collapsed. And and Kenyans are hurting. and that they want to get the opportunity to turn around the economy. The same government, before they even think of turning around the economy and telling you bring tax, is putting the cart before the horse. I think it's misplaced, in my view. I think this government needs to be told that you cannot tax people when the economy is still, you know, in doldrums. The economy is in a bad shape. People have no jobs. Incomes have declined. Businesses are collapsing. Let me, even based on the government's own statistics, many of the businesses which collapsed during the COVID have not recovered. Significant, almost over a third, according to some figures I've seen from some government institutions. And so you've said you want to turn around the economy. Turn around the economy. Then look for taxes. But I think telling Kenyans to raise 3 trillion, 4 trillion, 6 trillion, the next, I think is completely misplaced. Number 2, look at the performance. This current year, the tax revenue target is 2 trillion. KRA, in the figures they have published last week, for the 5 months, July to November, have underperformed. They have undercollected by over 30 billion. You know, if you prorate that, you're likely to have an undercollection of 100 billion by the end of June. If you cannot even collect 2 trillion, and you want to now target 3 trillion, what you are doing is telling KRA to go and, you know, hang Kenyans and bring money from them, whatever the case. I mean, you're unleashing KRA on Kenyans. Already, many businesses have serious issues with KRA in the manner in which they collect money. You know, a lot of arbitrary assessments, you know, a lot of unfair ways in which KRA, because they're given deadlines, they're given targets to raise money. So you're told, I want $1 billion. So it's up to you to prove that, you know, you're not supposed to. And so there are so many issues with KRA today with businesses. So you're asking Kenyans to do this, you're really going to cause a problem for many of the businesses in this country. So lastly, I want to say that, you know, tax should not be a burden. Tax should not be a burden on society. Governments have no powers to collect taxes the way they want. That's why we have parliament. And this is why my problem is parliament has failed the people of Kenya. Parliament should know the status of their citizens. People are suffering. People have no jobs. People have no incomes. And you're allowing government to collect taxes in a country where the government officially announces that a third of that revenue is going to be stolen. Officially. For the last 20 years, they have been announcing the third of the money. You know, 2 billion, the last president said per day, that's about 700, you know, out of 2 trillion. That is a third of that money is going to be stolen. So let us focus. I think this government needs to focus on how to utilize that money effectively. Let us focus on value for money. Let us focus on empowering Kenyans to get incomes, to get jobs. Let's not be crazy about collecting money and then spending it lavishly. Already we are living large as a government. It's one of the most expensive. The reason why I say so is because the amount of revenue collected by Kenya, KRA, and I want to be challenged by anyone in this government, is more than the amount of revenue collected by Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi combined. And those countries are doing better than us economically. Today we have become a basket case. We're importing eggs and tomatoes and everything from Uganda, from Tanzania, from everywhere. We can't even grow maize. We are not self-sufficient. We have to wait for GMO. I mean, so where is all that money going? I think that should be the focus of this government, how to run an efficient government, how to, you know, reduce all this debt burden by trying to do everything you want to do. No, you don't have to do everything you want to do. Allow people to have disposable incomes in their pockets. It's up to, the money is for the people to use. Collect enough money to go and run services that they want. You're not providing services. Kenyans don't have adequate medical cover. They are struggling with school fees. They can't afford to send their kids to school. You know, they have no jobs. They don't have social welfare. And you're telling them, I want every penny that you collect as taxes. I think that would be unfair.
Okay. But, Dr. Ari,
yeah.
do you think that perhaps this administration did not know how dire, because there's something that Mheshimiwa has raised. He said this is an administration that came into power on the promise of economic revolution. Is it possible that they did not know how the nature of the dire straits the economy is in? And I ask that because they've repeatedly told us now that they found empty coffers.
Yeah. I must say that has been one of my shocking revelations. Just a revelation that actually it seems that they didn't know. But that's worrying because our president was deputy president. a lot of the people in government, in a way, one way or another, are in different spaces. But these are things that were raised even before pre-election. At least I met the current president and raised the same issues that we are talking about today and said we are in a dire situation and therefore let's coach our promises in that sense. But for me, and I want to agree with Bilo, that I don't think we are dealing with just a collection problem, that we are not able to collect taxes. The fact is that we are already operating in a global economy that is in a bad situation. The global economy is actually set. IMF has made it clear we actually headed into a recession.
I know. I was looking at this policy statement. So China is the only one whose economy is growing. I saw the US will decline.
Yeah.
It's projected to decline from 1.6 to 1.
Precisely. So in that kind of an environment, then the fiscal consolidation language, which now is just become rhetoric now, it's just like, it's something you put in there, suggests that you have to deal with your expenditure side.
Mm-hmm.
And it's surprising through the BPS that actually instead of reducing the 300 billion, the supplementary budget one, which we finally, thanks to the BPS, we have finally found the details of what is coming, is actually raising the budget by 32 billion. So the 300 billion is no longer, there's no longer a cut.
Hot air.
Yeah, you may use that one. So for me that is surprising because the reality is, if we are going to make progress in the current situation, you must cut down expenditures. And you must cut down not the, you're not saying that you cut down expenditures in healthcare, that you cut down expenditures, but there are infrastructures, for instance, that you can delay.
Correct.
There are promises and projects that you can delay for a short while and then make sure that you are dealing with things that are of human interest right now, making sure there is food and farms. I mean, there has been even stories where there is, on one side of Kenya, food is rotting in farms. On the other side, people are sleeping hungry. So for me, the shocking part is just that disconnection of in reality, we are all struggling. Yeah, well, maybe the all should be qualified. A majority of Kenyans are struggling. On the other side, you still are running expenditures in government as though it's business as usual. Everything is fine, everything is okay. Then you tell KRA, go out there. The number of emails I've received even from KRA, yet I pay taxes, very regularly, and my company pays taxes. But you delay by a day, even for a technical challenge that you've raised with them, it's almost a threat, almost a show cause letter, and very aggressive, of, you must pay now, otherwise you're going to get a fine and things like that. I don't think that's the way to go. Right now, the fiscal consolidation discussion must be deliberately to cut, to reduce expenditures, and that means delaying. I don't think Kenyans have a problem with having some things delayed for a short while, so long as they can be able to meet their daily costs right now, because that's what's happening. Because what has pushed all the cost of living up right now is taxation. You look at your electricity, your token bill, more than half of it is different forms of levies and taxes. You think about any other service that you're buying, pump cost for petrol and the like. They are all taxes. A lot of it is driven by taxation. Of course, we appreciate that if we don't tax, then we have to borrow. But even that borrowing is driven by the level of deficit, which is what we are dealing with. And therefore, my take is that unless we deal with this from a governance perspective, and saying that a decision has to be made that this is the direction we are going, the technical discussion means very little. And the BPS has already shown that the direction we are going is not the direction that we have been talking about. It's not a direction of cutting on expenditures. It's not a direction of equity in terms of, but more importantly, it's not even putting money. Take a sector like agriculture. Agriculture is top #1 of the core areas that the BPS talks about.
Because they've talked about five
of them.
5 core areas.
Yeah, 5 core areas.
Yes.
But when you look at the amount of money that is going to be spent in the agriculture sector is actually declining for the coming financial year. So there's a bit of disconnect there. So for me, I'm surprised that there was no appreciation of how dire a need. But now that they know, why then continue in the same direction?
But they have talked about importing. They said we've imported, for the short range, they imported 1.5 million bags of 50 kg fertilizer. They said for the long range, we are importing, is it 6 million? I'll need to confirm that figure. But we'll come back to that, because I was also reading the Business Daily, and they were saying this executive has, compared to other executives, has actually, in terms of the percentage expenditure, is less than previous ones. But I'll confirm the details with the Business Daily in a moment. But then, Mheshimiwa, President William Ruto has put it this way. You were once a shadow finance minister. And President William Ruto has put it this way. He says you're complaining of debt. You're saying we need to stop borrowing. But where do we expect the money to finance our budget to come from? So he says we must raise the money internally.
Now, you see, my colleague has put this matter very clearly. If I was a member of parliament today, and I was a shadow finance minister, I'm not, I would throw out this budget policy statement. I'll throw it into the dustbin, because it doesn't make sense. Number one, it's going to create another huge budget deficit. When you are targeting to spend 3.6 trillion, that's the expenditure you are targeting. Your KRA today is struggling to raise 2 trillion. It can't even raise 2 trillion. You are definitely headed for a huge budget deficit again. Forget about what they write. We're going to reduce the deficit to 4%. These are stories. So I think the fundamental thing this government should have done is what he has said, cut down on expenditure. It's not about, you cannot just wake up and say, I want to spend trillions. I want 5 trillion, 4 trillion, 3 trillion. Bring the money. No, you don't have to. And I think so the point is, he doesn't need to borrow. All he needs to do is reduce his expenditure.
How would you go about it?
Live within your means. He has just mentioned it. Cut down on some of the things which are not a priority. Expenditures on infrastructure, expenditures on many other things in government. If you take,
isn't that what they are proposing, though?
No, they are not. They are not. That's why the expenditure is going up. That's why expenditure is going up. He was in Kisii, he was in Ebri, he's going around the country. I mean, everybody's giving a wish list. We want this road, we want that one. Thank you very much, I'm going to do it. I want this building, I'm going to do it. Everybody is going, in the country submitting, is focused on development. He says, I want to, so I'm telling you, look, clearly there is nothing in this budget policy statement which shows a firm commitment to reducing government expenditure so that we can live within our revenue. If our revenue is 2 trillion, for heaven's sake, prepare a budget that will be 2 trillion. An expenditure. Don't go for an expenditure for 3.6 trillion and you're headed for borrowing tomorrow to bridge that gap and say Kenyans, are not paying. Kenyans are not, we want SMEs to pay 2.8 trillion. I mean, this is a joke. I mean, honestly, let me tell you, I've been handling these budget policy statements as the chair of finance in Senate for 5 years. Very lofty statements, but don't even go very far. By the time the budget printed statements are done, you'll find that those printed estimates do not sometimes reflect the policy in this BPS. It will not. And sometimes the figures are not even the same. They will change because they'll realize that it's one thing to say we want to do this, but when they come now to write down what they want, other interests, political expediencies, developments, politics, every other thing comes in. I want a road for these guys. I need their support. Put it in. So things start changing. So I think that commitment, I expected the president when he was in Kisii and being told we want A, B, C, D, to tell them, gentlemen, hold it. We have no money. We have an economic crisis. We want to pay our debt. We want to reduce our, cost of living. So we are not going into any of these activities. Sorry. Instead, you tell everyone, bring your list, I'm going to do it. It's going to find its way into those printed estimates because of political expediency. And that means we'll end up in the same situation that we are already in.
All right, but the president tells us we are saving money by eliminating those costly fuel subsidies. There was the May subsidy.
There's nothing costly. Everywhere in the world where there's an economic crisis and there's cost of living, governments are subsidizing the cost of living for their citizens. This is a fundamental right. You cannot tell me to pay taxes, but you are not willing to use that tax to help me feed my children. You find it a burden. It should not be a burden. You are simply telling Kenyans the cost of food is so expensive. Here we are going to subsidize so that you can get the cost of food cheaper. It's from the US to Europe, everywhere, governments provide subsidies to their people in order to reduce the cost of living. So to try and project, that subsidies are a burden on the economy. You always focus in this country, the problem is we're always looking at government. The economy is equivalent to government for Kenya. This is the mistake. The economy is not government. For heaven's sake, in countries that are developed, like Europe, where they are not building roads and people are not submitting those wish lists today, the government still focuses on economy. And the economy there is about expanding the incomes, providing jobs, helping businesses to grow. Those are the things that the economy is about. It's not about government. Here the economy is about government. We need money. I save money by not giving you subsidies. The government says we are very happy we have saved money. I mean, saved money from who? Your people are starving. You are saving money to give to your ministries, and you are very happy about it, and they are wasting that money. They are not using it effectively and efficiently for the benefit of people. Your people are starving. Look at the news every day. You are showing how many people are starving and dying, and you are very happy that they have saved money. They can't afford to buy food. They can't afford, people are struggling. So subsidies, removal of subsidies is really not something to celebrate. Frankly, when your people are suffering, you can celebrate if your people are happy. But I think that is not the issue. The issue is this government must reduce its expenditure. Like he said, they should not be living the way they used to live a couple of years ago because the situation is bad. Let us try and reduce the size of government. We have not seen any effort to rationalize government. This government has continued to expand like every other government. We have not seen any effort to try and rationalize expenditure on infrastructure and other things. And so this is why and the CS Treasury has been very candid. Last week when he was launching this hearing, he said, we have no more headroom for example, for loans and things. Our situation is very bad. Let us try and reduce things. But the political wing is going out there still looking for, more projects and more money to carry out things. I think there is need for the president to appreciate that the situation we are in today, those people who brought him to power, the hustlers, they have no jobs, they need more food. That's the thing they need to focus on. Forget about other things for the moment. I think if you start telling people other stories, soon it's going to, they will face reality. Who had one problem? His government did not live in reality. They were always completely, am I wrong?
No, you
they were living
right. You are very right.
When actually, people were struggling, they were always saying, our country is the richest now in Africa. We have grown the economy 100 times, more than it was since independence, more than the 100 years since whatever the British came, and so many things. That was, is completely misplaced. This budget policy statements, if you read the preface, it says that 2021, the economy grew by 7.5%. Now, between me and you, the President of the Republic of Kenya in 2021 said the economy is in crisis. He said it publicly in the rallies. The people who are now in power, the Deputy President then, they said the economy has collapsed. Today you are telling Kenyans the economy grew 7.5, one of the highest in the world. Nowhere else in the world I have seen economy grow in 2021 7.5%. We would have all been happy. Everyone would have been smiling. We would have got jobs. Our incomes would have been higher. But 2021, people were dying.
The explanation, they preface that though, the explanation they give is that in 2020, I think it was 0.3%. So they say that it was a rebound come 2021.
I think you see, the economy growing must be felt, must be experienced in the sense that, as he's saying, really, you are able to perform certain things. You are able to deal with certain, because basically what it means that then you have created more opportunities for employment, more people are being absorbed. But that's not the story. Now, the story between 2021 and 2022 is that we also had some, not discussion, there was also a rebasing of the economy and a lot of things that went in there, details which maybe we may not be able to discuss. But for me, what is critical is that the Budget Review and Outlook paper, which was published in October last year, and the BPS have similar numbers. Now, between the Budget Review Outlook paper, which basically looked at 2021, 2022, and what happened, I think it was published a bit late, around November, it looked at how things were and did analyze a couple of things. 2 weeks ago, yes, should be 2 weeks ago, we had the sector hearings, which basically was a time for reality check. This was public participation.
Yes.
Before the BPS, because the BPS, remember, BPS does not take us to details. BPS provides us with sector ceilings.
Yes.
It gives us a broad picture. There was public hearing, there was a lot of conversations, there was meeting of commissions and a lot of conversations. What has shocked me is that the numbers have not changed. Actually, when you look at the two columns, between BROP and BPS 2023, which is 4 months apart, public participation in there, a lot of reality check, a lot of conversation about this 300 billion cut and the like have happened. And for me, the question is it that there is no need to listen anymore? Is it that there is no need for public participation anymore? Is it that...
It's been like that. I mean, we have been submitting comments.
Yes, of course.
They are never taken on board by Treasury.
Yeah.
What you see here as a draft is what will get finalized.
Yeah. So for me, that's, and I say that because, in fact, I was going to make the same point that Bill, we have submitted. I work in a space where we have submitted memorandums. And sometimes I feel like we are saying what we said last year, and the other year, and the other year to Treasury, and we will submit even on the BPS. We'll still submit even on the BPS, but sometimes it almost sounds defeatist, because if nothing is going to change, yet you have a very clear reality check. The country has started almost at 9.2% inflation. That was the December inflation. Just how much cost of living has gone up. Now we are going back to school, fuel is still high, electricity is high, you know, all these costs. What that should have said is that then it is time to actually even increase the cuts you had suggested while still taking care. And we are very clear that we need to take care of the social protection side of things. You know, education, food, healthcare. And the good thing is that healthcare actually is meant to have an increase in terms of spending. But then start managing these other costs that the CS Treasury was saying, let's think of how we can, you know, restructure some of these loans, some of these agreements, you know, so that then we are able to action and engage accordingly. So for me, that's a concern. That you, on one hand, you have a reality, which is telling you a very different story. On the other hand, you have a planning and a supplementary budget that says completely the opposite of what you had intentioned, which increases the budget by 32 billion. And then when you look at even the increases for the coming BPS, one of the hugest increases actually is to the National Treasury Administration and Planning. It's about a 66 billion, 62 billion increase. Now, that's not agriculture. That's not healthcare. You know, perhaps it's the Hustler Fund. But I expect the Hustler Fund to have its own, you know, budget line, so that then it's clear on what. So for me, that disparity is what is becoming a problem, because the cost of living is going up and is expected, even from the president's talk, is expected to actually go up. You know, unless you manage, and that's what Bill is saying. Countries across the world are finding ways of subsidizing. And perhaps one way of subsidizing is cutting on some other unnecessary expenditure right now and redirecting the money in what really matters at this particular point.
And that is what is written, or I thought I read in this document. But what I'm hearing from
you is that the numbers don't say, the narrative and the numbers are in two different lines, to be honest. Yeah, for me, that's the biggest concern. And especially that of BROP and BPS numbers, which are 4 months apart. Oh, well, we can say they are 3 months apart because the BPS was published. I mean, the BROP was published. And because reality should inform our planning. And the reality on the ground is that things are difficult. Right now, today, children are going back to school. There are many households where people don't know what to do next. They have no idea whether it's food or whether it's school fees. Yet those are the critical things that one should be putting energy into. So for me, the disparities are worrying, and we will submit the memorandum to National Treasury. We hope it will be taken seriously. In the past, the experience has been very bad. I hope this time with a new CS and a new PS, things will be different.
You have until close of business tomorrow.
No, we will do it.
No, we'll do it. Yeah, you will submit, but history, they will not take any of those views.
Below, we still keep like the hummingbird.
You're still doing it. I did it for 5 years in the Senate.
I've done it for almost 15 years. I still keep doing it.
Taken on board. But, you know, it's the way the government started off a few months ago. I think they started on the wrong foot. When the president said, I want every adult Kenyan with an ID to register as a taxpayer And he said, why do we have only
7 million?
Yeah,
And
when Safaricom has 30 million.
30 million, yes.
You know, and asking everyone, you know, you miss the point. You know, people may have Safaricom because those are telephones. People are getting support if you're sending money to your mom through M-Pesa. I mean, it doesn't mean that, and she has a phone, it doesn't mean that she has got an income that is taxable. And the moment you ask people to register as a taxpayer, the burden of tax collection itself is one of the things that, you know, all over the world, one of the fundamental things in the policies of tax is that it should not be a burden to collect it administratively and so forth. So I think the point that is the government seems to miss that 45% of the population of this country live below the poverty line. Official published statistics of the government. People are poor. We have millions of, you know, manpower who are unemployed, people who ought to be in jobs but who do not find jobs. So when you simply say everybody must register, I think you're starting off on the wrong footing. The perception that Kenyans are not paying taxes, that there, you know, 50 million Kenyans are simply avoiding to pay tax. I think that is the notion. That's the background. You know, it reminds me of the colonial days. Before, you know, they used to be called GPT tax, personal tax. Every individual, the whites used to collect tax on the basis of an individual, every house. So you, as the head of the house, you must pay some tax to the the government in UK. Now, this is the same mentality that I'm beginning to see. When you're told everyone must pay tax, whether you have a job or not, register. If you have an ID, you must register. You know, KRA should register everybody. And I think that's misleading. The government should look at the other side of the coin. This is the expenditure. We are collecting money. Where is that money going? Is it being used efficiently? Is it being used effectively? I mean, that's the focus. That should be the focus of this government. And turn around the economy. Then look for money. Not now.
But how do we net these tax evaders then, if not through integrating? But let me first get your thoughts on the proposal to integrate the KRA tax system with the telcos.
One, I mean, and this may sound a bit controversial, I think one is that telcos and mobile money, use of our phones is no longer just a communication system. It's also taken a financial system. But a lot of the transactions that are done in that space, not all are business oriented. And even within the banking system, it's not every expenditure that you incur. That is, basically you have to provide a reason for tax. Because one, for every transaction that you incur, there's already taxation. There's excise duty, you know, that is paid on the fees, you know, that we for every transaction that we take. And therefore, I find that it's, in one way or another, it's inevitable that you will have to integrate, because now it's no longer just a communication system. It's actually a financial system. Having said that, I think that the fact that you don't have every Kenyan who should be paying tax, and the numbers show, you know, the number of returns, the tax returns, especially on incomes, are by just a few people. I mean, about 3 million who makes, you know, annual returns on income. You already have very many financial activities that are happening through the mobile phone and through the mobile transactions. The issue is to separate that a lot of these transactions are after tax. Let me give an example. That I have already paid my income tax, and therefore I'm sending money to my mother. I'm sending money, you know, for paying for you know, even for rent and for all these kind of things. That's already, I have already paid tax, and therefore the focus should be ensuring that we are sorting and fixing the income tax payment for people who are earning, you know, who are getting an income. And this was going definitely, and then you are going towards a process of formalizing what we call the informal sector, you know, because honestly, there are still many Kenyans who don't pay their fair share of tax. What I have a problem with is a system where basically puts the vulnerable even into more vulnerability. For people who are moving in, are paying their 200 shillings, are paying their 300 shillings, they are paying their 400 shillings. At the end of the month, they have spent maybe some 5,000 shillings, or they have spent you know, a certain amount of money. If that's what the goal is, to ensure even that one is being taxed, and it's already, of course, below. Because you need to sort it out that this is not income tax. This is just operational expenditure, as it were, at household level. For me, the issue how you separate the two, I think for me is a critical thing in the discussion. And therefore, there's a lot of sorting out of what is income in my transactions or business and what is just operational expenditure on a day-to-day basis, as it were. Because even in the banking system, you get charged for your excise duty for your transactions, but not having for every expenditure a tax is collected because you have already paid your income tax upfront. I hope that does make sense. Yeah, income tax is deducted upfront. Then every other expenditure you're incurring, already there's a taxation of VAT for if you're purchasing a good or you're paying for a good. For me, I think the focus should be ensuring that we are able to pay our income tax at the point of earning the income and not on the operational expenditure, which is considered an income.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Mheshimiwa, could they be targeting maybe just till numbers and pay bill?
No, I think there are fundamental issues first. I think constitutional that I think would not permit the government, KRA or other institutions to have access to my data on my phone or to my bank account. This is the fundamental rights of privacy. You cannot. And so I don't see that proposal fly, really. I would imagine the courts would stop that because it's infringement on the rights of our telephones contain a lot of private data. Our bank accounts are similar. You cannot access data relating to an individual without any court approval. I think that would be allowing government to snoop on your phones tomorrow for any other reason. So that I don't think is the way to go, and I don't think it would be reasonable. But the second thing, again, why I think it would be misplaced is that KRA is supposed to tax on income. If you allow people to KRA to access your financial payments in M-Pesa, the risk is that it will be abused by KRA.
Correct.
In the same way they have abused access to bank accounts already. When you see that case of the deputy president, the 12 billion that he was charged with, they went and collected bank statements from the banks and said, transactions that have gone through this account in so many years amounts to 12 billion. So you have earned 12 billion, we want tax. You see, when you look at your bank statements, there's money that comes in and goes out. You spend money, you receive money, you spend money, you receive money, comes in and out. But everything that comes into your account is not income and is not taxable. So you allow KRA to start looking at transactions on bank statements or on M-Pesa. There's a risk that they're going to abuse it and simply say that all the transactions that you have received on your M-Pesa, even from your brother to assist you on school fees, is income, and I'll tax you on it. So we can't go that route. I think that already the government, this particular government, should be the one that should be worried about that legislation. They have said it loud and clear for the last 5 years in the campaigns, and even now they're saying it, that they have been victims of DCI and KRA and anti-corruption because those institutions have been weaponized in
fact, they use that very word in the BPS.
Now that is what they want to do to ordinary Kenyans, using KRA as a weapon to to infringe on our rights. Go to my M-Pesa and look for money. Go to my bank accounts, forcefully without my permission and get access to my bank statements and start asking me to pay money on transactions which, the problem is under the law, KRA, once they produce figures showing that your bank statements, we have found that you have received 1 billion. Now the onus is on you as a taxpayer to prove that this 1 billion is not income. It's not like the normal penal code where the government has to prove you're guilty, you're innocent until it's proven guilty. It's the other way around on tax. So they put you on a lot of burden for nothing. So I think in my view, this government knows the challenges of institutions being abused. They should not allow any kind of law that would give institutions the power to abuse those rights and subject Kenyans to suffer in the same way that they have complained about.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, we need to take a break, but when we come back, then I'll ask you, gentlemen, then how do you propose we net these tax evaders? Is it a case of desperate times call for desperate measures? Because the BPS talks about Kenya being at high risk for debt distress. on the other side of this break.
You're going to take your oxtail and then you're going to brown it.
I already have the evidence to take the mask off her, huh?
What could she have done? I mean, whoa! It had to be you.
Recharge and get upgraded to make memories with your loved ones this new year. Anytime, anywhere. Star Times. Enjoy digital life.
My name is Michael Olunga. Watch Spot On every Monday, 10 p.m. on NTV.
Welcome back to AM Live. We are discussing the draft 2023 budget policy statement. Before we took the break, I asked my panelists how they propose then if, for example, Mheshimiwa Kero is against the integration of the KRA tax system with telcos. We have Dr. Abraham Rugomuriu, who says it is inevitable. So, but I asked them, how then do they propose that we net these tax evaders the Ruto administration, has told us exist? Because this is what President William Ruto had to say at the National Taxpayers' Day, and he said we are selling 2.9 billion shilling stamps for excisable products, while our neighbors Tanzania are selling 7.5 billion shilling stamps, and Uganda is selling 9 billion shillings stamps. These two economies are smaller than ours. The government is selling 2.9 billion shilling stamps, and there are people selling the balance. I want to tell the good people at KRA, you must stop. Dr. Ari?
That tells you the problem is elsewhere. On one hand, I think that tells you that you are dealing with an integrity or corruption problem and not necessarily a non-collection problem. So that this money is collected and doesn't find its way into the coffers. Because I wonder whether there is a space where you don't have, you don't have any active space of business where KRA has not had, information and the detail of what is going on in that particular sector. And the fact is, anytime you have done any transaction, you have paid tax. So therefore, then you are dealing, and anywhere elsewhere, even within the BPS, there's a lot of discussion about, fixing the gaps fixing the gaps, efficiency, making it e-procurement, making it an e-system, basically making it an electronic system, where basically you're saying you're trying to remove the human hand out of the process, and therefore that means then you are, on one hand, you're actually dealing with an integrity problem, where either on one hand there is non-collection completely, or there is collection and no remittance for that matter. That would be my thought.
All right, sorry, I beg your pardon. It's the number of stamps, not shillings. 7 billion, 9 billion.
I get you. You. So this, you are dealing basically with a registration, an integrity of the system, and perhaps even of the people. In that process, and therefore it's not necessarily a non-collection challenge.
Understood. All right. Heshimiwa, how do you propose those tax evaders are netted? There is a proposal to install KRA officials at manufacturing plants and also to address the question of fake stamps.
Let me say this. There are tools that are used globally to measure whether a country is effectively collecting its potential tax revenue. And one of them is the tax revenue as a percentage of your GDP. And in the sub-Saharan African countries, our tax revenue as a percentage of GDP is one of the highest in the sub-Saharan countries, one of the highest, in fact higher than South Africa, higher than even countries like Egypt and many of these other countries in East Africa. It's not that we are not collecting taxes. Number two, I think some of the measures that KRA has proposed, including using drones, using body cameras, using intelligence, all manner of things, we're weaponizing that institution, really. And it's going to be counterproductive. People you've seen, even in this paper they have mentioned, but in the last 10 years, a number of multinational companies have relocated from this country because of the high cost of doing business. We have lost our productivity, our competitiveness, because of the high cost of production. And one of the factors, apart from energy and freight and other, other challenges, one of them is the high cost of tax. And you've just seen when you started this program, you talked of De La Rue. One of the reasons why they're shutting down is because of these tax problems. A number of companies have moved to countries where, taxation policies are more fairer and more reasonable and more predictable. And so to try and, create a perception that businesses are criminals and you have to install cameras and you have to install intelligence people and so forth, I think that lack of trust, that lack of, you're clearly telling businesses that we don't trust you, you don't, I think that's not the way to do business, that's not the way to collect taxes. And I think the government is really being misled. That would discourage businesses. You want to focus on your business. The government has a way in which they collect revenues. You have access to all my audited accounts. You have access to, in fact, the IT department of KRA literally can collect the entire database from companies. They do that. Correct. All our businesses. They're experts. They go and pull out all the data in your database and they examine it and see whether you have accounted for all the. They do a lot of analytics. They go to all your suppliers. They have, in fact, the system of suppliers and businesses are now so integrated that if I supply NTV now with these phones, the government, KRA would know that because for me to submit my claims on VAT, I have to indicate that NTV has to indicate that we supplied this, and I have to be a registered taxpayer myself.
Correct.
So they will check whether I have accounted for the sale of this phone to you on my, as a supplier. They will also check on yours. Otherwise, your sale or your VAT claim will not even be accepted. So there are so many ways in which they're already using to try and tighten up things. So I think to try and put cameras, and next they're going to say all KRA guys will carry guns. And and I remember Uhuru a couple of years ago, he said, you guys, the way you're behaving, soon people will jump out of windows when they see KRA coming in. So I think let us not go there. Let us not kill the goose that lays the golden egg. Okay. Let us provide them. The role of the government is to provide a good business environment.
Correct.
That is fundamentally what they're supposed. They are not doing it. Government, I am telling you, kind of thinks that businesses are criminals. You try and go and see a minister as a business, and we're having this challenge to discuss challenges. They think you are coming here to waste their time. KRA, for example, now on the exchange,
yeah.
everyone who is in business is buying dollars at 133, 134. Everyone who is in business, when you are buying for imports, forget about when you are looking for $1,000, you are buying at 124. If you are you want $100,000 for business, the rate is now almost 134, 133, 134. You go and tell the central bank governor, you know, the banks are selling it to us at 134. He'll tell you that is not true. Get out of my office. He has no time for people, for businesses. We have tried through KEPSA, through CAM, through every institution. Nobody wants to listen. You go to Ministry of Trade, people are doing all kinds of things through imports, you know. So there are policy issues that the government should address, really. The government should listen to the businesses. Find out how you can help businesses to grow so that they can employ more people, so that they can get more revenue to pay taxes. You're not focused on all those things. You're just saying, I want this law and that law. You know, you must do this, you must do that, you must do this, you must. I don't think that is the way, you know, governments should run the country.
Okay. Daktari, you said, both of you actually, what I'm hearing is the numbers do not back the narrative. But I mentioned a Business Daily article earlier. I've pulled it up. Ruto expands budget by 7% to 3.64 trillion. And this article is by Patrick Alushula. And he says, just zoom in here. He states that the proposed 7% growth will mark the slowest rise in government spending in 4 years since 2019-2020, when the budget rose by 5% to 2.57 trillion.
I think percentages have a way in which they crowd things out. When you look at the absolute, I think what really we get concerned when you look at budget numbers. Yes, there's percentage, and as we talked about, even the deficit, there's a lot of percentages. But when you look at the amounts and what it's being spent on, I think that's always the biggest concern in that. Because in percentage-wise, remember the budget has also grown big time. The economy has been rebased, and therefore what you're saying is a percentage even of GDP has changed significantly, because then you're talking of a higher. But that's not the point. The point is that whereas in percentage-wise it looks like the growth from last year to this year, because it's, you know, it's a 3.3 to about 3.6, whereas that looks like it's a small it's a small growth, in percentage terms. When you look at the absolute terms of what is growing and what is being spent on, debt repayment, as I said earlier, administrative services of that nature, some spending on healthcare, less spending on agriculture, which is a critical area. For me, those are the concerning areas. And then secondly, also, the fact that the deficit is growing at almost a similar percentage, then it means that you are still increasing your vulnerability, to be able to provide services in the future. Because then when you talk about even the risk of debt indebtedness, it means that if your deficit is growing very fast, then in the future, you still are putting yourself in a higher risk of being unable to meet, because on one hand, you may be raising your revenues, take that for granted, then on the other hand, you are still spending much more on non-discretionary kind of spending, in the sense that you're spending more to pay loans and debts that you took before, so you're not providing services. You're not building you're not strengthening the economy, as it were. For me, that's a concern. So yes, the percentage will show that yes, the growth is not as big, but the reality is that you still, in the absolute terms, you still are putting yourself in greater risk if your deficit is not reducing, as it were. Okay.
Mheshimiwa, this document project, and I'm just trying to pull up something on infrastructure, but I'll get to that. Yeah. This document talks about risk factors. Listed as among them is the drought situation. They also talk about a decline in manufacturing. They also talk about, of course, the debt situation, and Russia-Ukraine uncertainties, U.S. monetary policy. Then they go and project a 6.1% growth in the economy, up from 5.5%. Having read this document and looked at the interventions, for example, they say in the housing sector, they will create 100,000 jobs. Is it, in your view, feasible?
If you look at the The statement issued by the CS Treasury last week when he was launching the budget sector hearings. Among the things he quoted was the World Bank report that indicated that globally the world is headed for a recession, and that they actually reduced the projected growth globally downwards to just over 2%. So when you have that picture that globally the world economy is headed for a recession, and then two, there are certain global shocks that affect us significantly. For example, on the energy as front, on food, because we import also a substantial amount of the foods. Then you have the challenges on our exports. When you have a war situation, we have a drought situation also that you have mentioned. When you look at all those things, I would have expected the government to have, not to have been too positive, to grow to put the projection at above 6, when we've just done 5.5%, and the situation is getting gloomier globally. I would expect, so I think this 6.5% is a bit too optimistic. And in my view, it's the government in this country. Government always wants to give that feel good, in the budgets, that feel good attitude that everything is going to be rosy, everything is going to be nice. But I think it's going to be difficult. And the CS, read what the CS says and look at the way he speaks. He says the situation is going to be very bad next year. He says things are going to be tough. Then you now say you're going to grow the economy 6.5%, one of the highest in the region, that you're looking at. When the rest, the global average, we're looking at 2%, just about 2%. So there's a bit of a disconnect. There's the political aspect and there's the technocrats. So the technocrats in the ministry feel these things are going to be difficult. But the political side, of course, feels that no, let us have that, that positive growth of 6.5%. We should import it. We should get it. We should be there. So it's a bit of a compromise between the, and at the end of the day, it's the political, expediency that determines. This is political. Budget is a political instrument, and so no government wants to show that Uhuru had 2021 7.5, and so we want to go down from 5 to 4%. They want to also be seen to be doing better. But I think it's a bit too optimistic. But it depends a lot on the global situation, on the way things play out in the energy sector, in food, in the war, and the drought and the climate. All those things are now critical issues.
All right, and some may argue out of the external factors. So what can we do internally to cushion ourselves?
I think we still have not maximized the availability of food within the country and a consumption of what we produce. There's still a lot of appetite to import even food that we produce here. You have cases of maize going into waste when we are importing maize. You have cases of vegetables going into waste. We have peak seasons for different products. Right now it's peak season for fruits from different areas. A lot of them again will, I think, if we can first of all make the most of the food we produce and make it a very deliberate decision that when maize is produced, the post-harvest is improved, and therefore we collect, a lot of silos are now, almost laying bare and wasted, at 25%, and, at a very low percentage of, equipping. I feel, and also with forward planning, a lot of times when even the food we are importing, if it can be imported long before, for purposes of the gaps, and then stored, because it's cheaper at that point. When you import it at the point of crisis, of course, the market determines the prices. I feel that it's not even a business orientation. That appetite for just importing, and I think it's becoming ridiculous that we are importing everything, including things we can produce, including eggs, which we can produce here, fish, toothpicks, and many other things. I think if we do that, what that will do is that then it reduces our expenditure, which is, especially on foreign currency, of food. Because once you sort food problems, you've sorted a big portion. Right now, a lot of the cost of living a lot of inflation is driven by food costs.
Food, correct.
By food costs. Then you jump to the other things, of things that you don't produce yourself. Those are the ones that then you import. And you're able even to negotiate very serious prices, better prices in that. For me, I feel that's the best way. And what that does, once you invest deliberately, then you're saying, first, even households and small households are able to produce for themselves. And what they produce in excess, they know there will be a market. And therefore, they get an income. Because you're still saying, on one hand, 75% of employment, in one way or another, is still dependent on agriculture. And contribution to the economy is 25, but declining. Agriculture contribution is declining. But a second point is also the processing, the manufacturing. I was very surprised that there's only one paragraph on manufacturing in the entire in the BPS, in the narrative section. Only one paragraph. Yet, we are saying that unless you are investing in manufacturing, all the countries we admire and want to look like have progressed on the backbone of manufacturing. Because that's when you get to make sense of your agricultural produce. You don't sell it raw. You value add it. And that's where you create now the next bulk of manufacturing. So unless you put energy and effort in those two spaces, all these others are support, because education and training is supportive of what the economy produces. When you read the story of Singapore, of Malaysia, and all these countries, education and training came to support what was the national vision. What is it that they had purposed to do and to focus on? In Kenya, we are saying agriculture produces the most and feeds people. Put energy there, put the money there. And as I said, the budget is actually declining in that sector. For me, back to this discussion of the day, is that that's what creates incomes. Because if you don't have incomes at household level, and you don't have food at household level, all these other goals then become obsolete, because what matters to me is whether I'm able to feed my family and whether I have an income.
All right. Yeah. Maheshwar, your last word?
Yeah, I want to add on to what he said. I think he said it very well. When you look at the BPS, the government has already got some ideas on what they want to do. For example, on the food, they have indicated they want to expand on irrigation from 700,000 to 3 million acres. They have
100 dams.
100 dams. On the energy, they have talked of even putting up rechargeable
the cars, electric
power,
cars.
Yes, recharge points all over the country so that you can go for electric cars.
Yes.
But I think there's a lot more that they can do. For example, on energy, there's no reason why we should be having expensive power supply in this country. When you have geothermal, it's one of the most efficient and cheapest sources of energy. But because of corruption, because of the cartels that they've said they will weed out, we are paying very expensive electricity because of the independent power. Those thermal generators which belong to politicians and other well-connected people. We will wait to see if they will walk the talk on that, because they can get the power costs down significantly if we focus on our geothermal sources of energy. Number two, I think the points on agriculture, the focus on this government's manifesto, if you will, and even the GPS and even this policy statements, is on agriculture value addition. When you talk of value addition, you're talking of manufacturing. You're talking of manufacturing, isn't it?
Yeah, correct.
Yes, but again, when I have told you that there are serious issues on policies regarding manufacturing. Serious. The government simply has no time, no ear for manufacturers, and they're suffering. Look at the headline today. Fears of price hikes and shortages of goods because manufacturers are having serious problems. And one company here which is dealing with clearing and forwarding is saying they have introduced every kind of levy for maritime, manufacturing of edible oils, And a few months ago they introduced a new levy. It's called Agricultural Food Authority Levy, 2%. Even when they're having crisis of cost of living, every other month they're introducing one levy after another. So in every item that you buy, there are 4, 5, 6, 7 different type of government taxes. They are called levies. They have the VAT, they have the duty, then they have to go this, that, and petroleum levy, SGR levy, and that levy. So I think we have a problem. And the media can help if they can really, discuss, for example, trying to tell Kenyans that their fears, because the exchange rate is 124, is misleading. We have not bought Forex at 124 for the last 3 to 6 months. You're now at 134. 124 is when you're looking for your school fees. You want to send $100. But if you are an importer, if you are a manufacturer, we are buying at 133, 134. A median knows if they call the nearest bank downstairs, this building, just walk in and ask, you want $100,000 for your business. They'll quote you at 134. That is the price they're selling at. Okay. So I think there is a problem that the government needs to address on that side so that they can achieve some of the measures that they have outlined in the budget policy statement.
All right. You said edible oil, it's Sally, yeah? The brand?
Edible oils.
Yes, Sally, I think I saw.
Salid is one of the many brands.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Thank you so very much for taking part in AM Live this morning. Bilo Kero, former Senator, Mandera County. He's also a businessman, as you heard. Apart from being a professional, he is an CPA. Correct. All right. And we'll have Dr. Abraham Rugo Muriu, and he is the country manager, International Budget Partnership. Thank you so very much for your contributions this morning. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll be discussing what Raila Odinga will have to say today at Kamkunji. We are keeping our eye on that. Don't think we forgot it. That's it for me. My name is Olive Burrows. Good morning.
Jik cleans and kills 99.9% of illness-causing germs and COVID-19 in your home. Jik, your family's guardian against germs and COVID-19.
My name is Michael Olunga. Watch Sport On every Monday, 10 p.m. on NTV.
I already have the evidence to take the mask off her, huh?
It had to be you.
Recharge and get upgraded to make memories with your loved ones this new year. Anytime, anywhere. Star Times. Enjoy digital life.
Here,